welcome back to episode 2 of the Quantum Podcast with myself, Ethan Morland. I'm the host, and I aim to speak to high performers from all walks of life about the hows and the whys behind what they do. So on today's episode, I have professional skateboarder and model Ben Nordberg on the podcast. Ben is a professional skateboarder for SOVRN and has been skating for over 10 years and recently went pro for the company SOVRN. We had a really interesting conversation about the problems he's faced in skateboarding, his injuries, his modelling career, how skateboarding is obviously up and coming with its recent appearance in the Olympics, how skateboarding has been overlooked in the past as one of the top sports in the world. We also talk about his want to compete in the future, having competed a few times at Street League and other events. And yeah, we just had a general overall chat about skateboarding and just everything surrounding it. It was a great conversation, and Ben, thank you for coming on the podcast. I hope you all enjoy this episode. It's a great one, so please leave a like, subscribe, all that shit that people ask you to do on YouTube or wherever you're listening. Thank you. Welcome to the podcast, mate. How are you doing?
Very well. Thanks for having me.
So do you want to tell people a bit about yourself, what you do, that kind of thing?
Yes. Well, professional model. I don't know about that. I've done some stuff. I'm a professional skater. I grew up in Bath, England, and moved to California about 10 years ago. I've been out here. Yeah, I've been here for about 10 years. I live with my fiance in Koreatown in Los Angeles, and that's about it, really.
Nice. So I want to start from the very beginning with you. So you started skating at what age?
11.
11 years old. So that
something like that. I actually don't even 10, 11, something like that.
So you're 31, 32 now, so about 20 years?
33.
So yeah, 20 odd years. So you've been skating for over 2/3 of your life, which is crazy. So talk to me about how you got into skateboarding and who sort of pushed you towards that as a sport rather than in England where it's typical to play football, rugby, that kind of thing.
I was really into cricket. I was good at cricket. Played for I think I played for the county. Okay. I was a good bowler. I was a good bowler off spin. Quite a good batsman actually as well. My headmaster was fuming when I quit because I just got bored of it. The team sports was never something that interested me. Rugby, I got battered because I was tiny when I was a kid. I was about 5'1", and I just got annihilated. It's actually crazy how schools in England make you play rugby. Like it's mandatory, and you get battered. It's carnage out there. I don't know if it's still like that now. I'm pretty sure they can't do it like they used to do it, because I don't know if you did it, but man, it was just horrible.
So for me, I'm 23, and we were forced. So we were forced into it, and it was always the coldest months. So like November, December, when it's frosty, you can't feel your hands or anything, and they're just like, "Yep, go out, beat the shit out of each other for an hour." And it was
literally
the worst thing in the world.
Excuse for kids to like smash into each other. But the thing is, I was so small, I would get the ball and just lob it away or kick it straight away, because otherwise I'll just get crushed. But I think skating, I started when I was about 11 or 12. A bunch of my mates were doing it, and then we were just pinging about, the neighborhoods. We're near our school, near our junior school, senior school. I think senior school. Was that senior school? Beach and Cliff was the name of it. Yeah, so we would just skate around like where our mates lived and stuff. And slowly but surely, a lot of them started to not be that into it. But for some reason, I just kept being into it. And then I started to like sneak off down the down to the skate park, and I started to meet people down there, and I was I don't think some of my mates even knew I used to go to the skate park. I was quite quiet about it, and again, I was tiny, so I was quite intimidated by a lot of things, but I just kind of went down there, and then everyone was really nice, and it just kind of went from there. And then most of the mates I started with quit. One of them booted a kicked a log and broke his foot, and that was the end of that. So it's just little things like that, or they just got into something else, or whatever. They started drinking.
Yeah, it's definitely an interest that, like we said just before. For you as a kid, who did you look up to when you were skating? Who was the sort of style that you wanted to emulate? Because your style is very, very unique, I must say.
I don't. Well, the first videos I watched was like the flip video, the flip. Sorry, a couple of videos like that, which is funny because that was the company I ended up getting sponsored by, and a lot of those guys were heroes to me growing up, like Otto, Jeff, Mark Appleyard, those guys. And then 10 years later, I was at their house, sleeping in their guest room. So that was really cool. That was a big like full circle thing. Definitely, I wouldn't say there was one particular style who complete. There was just little things I would pick up on that I really liked. Stefan Janowski used to do this thing where he would, because it was always cold in England, so I'd always be wearing hoodies. Actually, for a long time, I could only skate with my hoodie up. It was this weird thing I had where I like only felt comfortable if I had a hoodie up. And I think it started because it was just cold. But then it kind of became my thing. Like I would always have a hoodie on. And I think it was my way of hiding. So like it's like some kind of safety blanket. You know what I mean? Like if it's not on my head while I'm skating, I feel like too exposed or something.
Yeah.
I eventually got out of that, but that was my thing for a long time. But a thing Stefan used to do was put his sleeves over his hands, and he just looked kind of cool to me for some weird reason. So I used to do that a lot. But there wasn't a particular style. There was a few guys who definitely influenced me, but I can't think of one like specific person. It was just a bunch of different dudes.
It's one of those, style in skateboarding is massive, I think, because it really, it makes especially now with the day of Instagram, it makes a person sort of, more influential, if that makes sense. So like for you, you have this style where everything looks effortless. It doesn't matter what it is. It look like your arms don't seem to move too much. When you land on the board after you've finished a trick, it's very sort of nonchalant. And you don't see that much. You tend to see a lot of people, there's a lot of twisting, a lot of arm flailing. And yeah, you just seem so relaxed on a board. And it's really, I remember as a kid, there was 3 of us who used to skate, and we used to watch your videos and be like, how the fuck does this guy do this? What's going on?
I have no idea why I do that or where that came from. I think it was just completely natural because a lot of people used to say, "Oh, you're faking it, like you're bullshitting, like you're doing that on purpose. That's fake stuff." It was literally, I didn't try to do that at all. And then I think when people actually try to like imitate it, they're like, "Oh shit, you can't really imitate it because unless." But I was trying really hard every trick, Yeah. But for some reason, my arms just don't move that much. But I'm not like, oh, that's dope. That's just how I skate.
Yeah. So then, obviously, you got into skateboarding with a few mates and that kind of thing. But I feel like at that time, it would have been people would have looked at you funny for doing it. So what were your parents like with you?
Oh, they were all good. They never had a problem with me doing it. They just let me do my thing. Honestly, I was out fucking all day, every day. I was off to Europe when I was like 15, 16 on my own, or with other people. I don't even think they've seen me skate. That's really bad. My dad lives 5 seconds away from the skate park, and he's barely watched me skate. He would walk home from work, past the skate park. He wouldn't even stop to like watch me. He'd just go home. Like bollocks to this, going home for a glass of wine. But yeah, my mum's never ever seen me skate. That's terrible.
That's wild.
Never word. I know.
I guess it's one of those. It would
so
have been one of those
like
things
out here, because that was the biggest shock to me coming out to America, was seeing how involved parents are. It's kind of like, whoa, dude, like, it's too much. So some of the parents are fine. I get it. They're trying to make sure their kids have the best possible. But some of them are way over the top.
Yeah.
Chucking that was
Go
the
on.
biggest shock to me coming out to America, was seeing how involved parents are. It's kind of like, whoa, dude, like, it's too much. So some of the parents are fine. I get it. You know, they're trying to make sure their kids have the best possible, but some of them are way over the top. Kids down big rails and, you know, pressuring them into doing stuff they probably shouldn't be doing.
It's definitely interesting because the likes of, you hear the stories about Nigel Houston and his dad, the way his dad used to push him to do everything, and that to me is really insane. Because in the
I
UK,
don't know. I can't comment on that one. I've no
yeah,
idea.
it's just, obviously it's just what you read, but it's in the UK, it's very different. With if it's football, if it's rugby, if it's, you know, even if it's boxing, it's a sport where parents go and they push the kids to do it, they push them into it, and then they sort of drive them to keep going. Whereas skateboarding is very much self-driven. You buy your own boards with your own pocket money. You know, it's not parents buying you football boots. It's always you do it for you. And that's what I always found interesting about it is it can be very isolating in one aspect, but then you've also got this community of people that you meet through it who are amazing people, where it feels like a big family.
Yeah, you develop excellent social skills, I think, because you're constantly around other people, but you're completely alone as well. It's a weird combination. It's completely dependent on you. There's no team or coach to make like, all right, you got to go to practice. You know, practice is now. Until now, this is what you're going to do. These are the drills, where like you'd have in another sport. Skateboarding, you're just completely, you kind of just go with you. You don't ever go to the skate park with a plan. You think, sometimes you might go with a specific plan, like, I'm going to practice this trick. But when you're growing up as a kid, you don't ever go and think, I've got to do this. You kind of just fuck around, and as you skate more, you get more into it, and then you start to learn more tricks, and then you can kind of piece them together. But yeah, it's weird because they're completely independent, but also very social at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely I found it to be very, very social, some of the people I met and that kind of thing. But for you, you said obviously you started at 10 or 11. At what age did you think, shit, I can make not a career, but you can make this work? Because it's so different to now, where
I still don't think that.
like kids now can start an Instagram page, get good at skating, post the tricks, and it's that how influential they are is what brings in sponsors. But when you were a kid, it wasn't even a thing. How on earth did you go about getting like Flip to sponsor you, for example?
Well, yeah, we had video VHS. I would put my footage on a videotape, sent that off to a company, and then you get a response a couple of weeks later. And I remember I started getting boards from this one company. I'd get 1 or 2 boards a month, and then I think I got on. They sent my video off to Vans, so I started getting Vans flow. That was kind of the catalyst to start going to a lot of events. Vans UK, this guy Nick Powley, he was the reason I started going to all the events, because they would pay for my train tickets and stuff like that, and they kind of brought me into their little group, which at the time was kind of, in England, that was like that was the one to be on, because they were doing the most shit. Vans back then used to do a lot of cool stuff, a lot of really fun events, good tours, some really, really funny trips, like outrageously good banner.
Talk to me what it was like to be on those trips at such a young age. How was that for you?
It's good. I think that's one of the coolest things about skiing, is age doesn't factor into it really. You can have like a 39-year-old man around like a 15-year-old kid, and it's not weird. It's like completely like, I don't know, what you wouldn't see that in many other scenarios, but they take care of you. They make sure you're all right. They're almost like, but like older brother figure. They become like older brothers to you or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they always make sure you're fine. And skateboarders are 99.9% always awesome. You know, there's always a couple of knobheads, but for the most part, everyone's great.
It's a given with everything. But so, what was your first big trip away with Vans? Where was the first place you went to?
I don't. We didn't go out of the country. We went on this tour. I think it started. So they got like a school bus and put, covered it in van stickers, and that was the tour bus. It was like an old school bus. You remember those ones with the pole with the bell on it, with the
Yeah.
really uncomfortable seats. So we were driving around the country in that. And I think it started in Leeds and ended up in Cornwall. So it was a good drive. And we would hit, skate parks on the way, and ended up in Cornwall. But that was a really good laugh. That was brilliant. And the tour video from that was really funny. And the bus broke down a bunch of times. We get stuck on the side of the motorway. Ended up in someone's farm.
Like these sort of trips that skate teams do always end with wild stories. A lot of them may be to do with drinking, going out partying, but it always tends to be they get in these really weird situations that no one else would ever get in, and create these memories that last forever.
Absolutely, yeah, it's great.
So then, at what age was it that you became sponsored by Flip?
I think it was about 19. Yeah, not 19 or 20. I got a call fucking out of nowhere. I got this weird number pop up on my phone. It was +1, which is the American code. I was like, what the fuck's that? And it was Jeremy from Flip. And I was like, eh. And I just wasn't. I was a bit, taken back. And next thing I know, no, yeah. So he said, do you want to, get some boards, and basically, do you want to be on the team? But I wasn't fully on straight away. It was kind of flow. Companies, unless you're like top boy, in your country, they'll never just put you on the team. You need to go to the country, go to America, see how you do out there first, then you'll become AM.
Just for those who don't know, could you just explain the difference between flow, AM, and pro?
So flow, you're just getting boards, nothing crazy. You might go on a triple two. AM, you're like on the team, like you're on the website, you're in ads, and then AM is the next step towards pro. Usually, when you're AM, you'll then go pro in a few years. But as you'll come to find out, that didn't happen for me with Flip. It's a long story.
Okay. So yeah, you then obviously you joined the Flip team, and then did you go out to America to meet them? What happened with that?
Yeah, so I flew out to America, and the first place I went was Phoenix in Arizona, which is crazy hot. I mean, I got there and it was 102, I think, Fahrenheit. And I went straight to the Phoenix AM contest, which was like terrifying. And the first person I met was Jeff Rowley. I was absolutely shitting myself because he was like a hero, legend status to me. This pro skater from England, who was in the Tony Hawk's games. He was just an absolute legend. And he was the first person I met, and I was skating with him. I was like, my legs were shaking so much. I remember I could not do any tricks. I was just a wreck. And plus, it was so hot. I was like overheating, blah, blah, blah. Skated the contest, did terrible. And then went back to, and then at the time, they had a house in Long Beach, which was ran by the team manager at the time, Harry, and his wife, Sally, was there. And then it was me, Luan, and David Gonzalez. So that was quite an experience.
What's it like being on a team with these, top of their game skaters? Like, Corin Caples, 2-time X Games winner. Luan Oliveira, 2-time Street League winner. Jeff Rowley. Like, what is it like being on a team with these people? Is it daunting? Is it good for you skating? How is it?
Yeah, you can only improve skating around. I always like to try to skate with people who are better than me, because that's the only way you're going to improve. If you skate with people who aren't very good, I don't think you're going to progress very much. Because if you see them doing, holy shit, but then maybe I could try that, and you try it, and it kind of works. So yeah, I mean, skating with those guys are absolute top tier, best. So it was definitely daunting, but you tell yourself you can hang with them. But it is hard to be on the, they're on a whole different level to anything I'd seen before.
Yeah, I think those who can skate at the top competitions like the X Games, Street League, they're the top 1%, where they're landing every trick near enough every single time, no matter what. And they're so technical, they've got such good style. It's, for some, I feel like it would be very sort of scary to be around, because you kind of think, oh, I'm not as good as, or I can't do that. But for you've had obviously that style where you skate a lot of transition, and you're very relaxed in what you do, and it doesn't seem to have affected how you skated. You've always done what you want to do, which is quite good. But talk to me about, so those initial few years, how was it skating and keeping you how you are?
Yeah, well, it was going okay. I think I went on a tour, which went pretty good. Things were starting to pick up, and then it just completely, everything fell apart because I destroyed my leg. I broke my leg so badly. I fractured my tibia, which is like the top of your shin bone. So you say this is your leg and this is your ankle. That's your fibia, tib fibia, and then tibia, which is like basically just under your knee. It's a big bone right there. And I completely broke the whole thing. So my leg was stuck. My leg was stuck back like that on a rail, just on this little flat bar. And Jeff Rowley put me in the back of his car, drove me to the Long Beach hospital, and I was in hospital for 4 days. Had surgery there. Had 49 staples.
Wow.
In my leg because of the surgery. They stapled it up, the scar. Got a big metal plate down the leg with 6 pins. And I was in hospital for 4 days. I was on morphine the whole time. I was absolutely off my nut. I couldn't even eat ice chips without throwing up. So I basically didn't eat anything for 4 days, probably. And I was on morphine the whole time. I remember I used to smoke at the time, and I went outside in a wheelchair for the first time in 3 or 4 days, just lit up a cigarette, and I've never been so lightheaded. I was just like in a wheelchair on my own, melting with like a cigarette in my mouth. And then a week later, I was able to, because they didn't put me in a cast because it was just this weird place to break your leg. So I was able to fly home a week later, but the recovery from that was really hard. I'd say it was six to 9 months. 9 months before I could skate properly, which was a long time.
Insane. It's
it's
probably a good point
the confidence absolutely just destroyed me.
Yeah.
It was so hard to come back from that.
It's probably a good time to get onto injuries and stuff like that, because so skateboarding, you get hit in the shin, that's bad enough. But when you're doing such technical tricks, down stair sets, down rails, that kind of thing, the chances of bone breaks are pretty bad. And so talk to me about, some of the worst injuries. Obviously, that's one of them, and how you've adapted to these injuries sort of afterwards.
Well, yeah, that's the worst one, because that was just terrible, the whole experience. And it was pretty depressed. I was in a pretty heavy depression for about a month, because I flew back to England straight, and it was winter time, so I couldn't even leave the house, because I lived on a hill, and it snowed for a couple of weeks. I literally couldn't get out of the house for 2 weeks because I was on crutches, so I couldn't leave because I would slip. So that was pretty depressing. I was like, that was the low point. But then that was all right after that, 6 or 7 months, and I could skate again. That's actually the only bone I've ever broken, touch wood. I've been knocked out cold. I've gotten staples in my head. I've dislocated my elbow 3 or 4 times each side. Actually, I separated this bone here one time, not too badly, but a pretty good amount. And then I've sprained my ankle more times than I can count. And shin is, I don't even consider a thing. You know, when I see someone getting kicked in football and they're rolling around on the floor, that really winds me up. Because I'm like, they should get a skateboard to the shin. They're wearing shin pads too, the knobheads. Do you know what I mean? I get it. You know, if someone kicks you in the leg with studs, it's gonna hurt. But skateboard's made of metal.
It's honestly
football players really wind me up with their injury bollocks.
It's quite, you know, a shinner. I remember getting my first one, and it's like the first one is like your soul leaves your body for a second. It's the worst feeling in the world. And the only thing I can compare it to,
there's different levels to it.
Yeah,
there's like a metal shinner where they're out, but then there's somewhere so bad that you almost cry.
Yeah, the only thing I can compare it to is, so in MMA, if you throw a low kick, and someone checks it, so they put their shin out and your shin hits
like
their
that.
shin, the worst feeling in the world. Like you can't even fathom walking after.
If it's bone on bone, that's gonna hurt.
Yeah, but what's the rehab like for you when you've had these injuries?
It just depends what it is. You know, dislocated elbows like a month. Knocked out. I was skating the next day. Probably shouldn't have, but that's whatever. Same with the staples in my head. That was a couple of days. And then, sprained ankle can take a few weeks. I've got terrible toes, actually. That's one of the worst things I have. That's an ongoing problem. I think it's hereditary, but I have arthritis in both big toes, which is actually really annoying because it doesn't sound like it's anything bad. Like, oh, my toe hurts. You're like, whatever. But it's so bad. They're called bunions, basically. It's not a nice word. I think they should change the word, honestly. But it's so bad that, sometimes it doesn't bend. My big toe doesn't bend back. And just so happens you really need your big toe to do stuff. I didn't realize how much you need your toes, especially the big one. That's doing a lot of shit. So to not have it bend back is really inconvenient. And sometimes it gets so aggravated and swollen that I can't wear a shoe after I skate when I drive home because it's so painful. So I've had to start doing cortisone shots every 6 months where he just gets this massive needle and he puts it in the joint and it's horrible. It's like the worst thing. He gets it right in the joint.
I've had one in my big toe as well, actually. So I had surgery so between the big toe and the second toe, they cut open the top of my foot and drilled into the bone, sesamoid bone it's called, in the bottom of my foot. Yeah. And I'm in the same boat. Like, I then understood the importance of the big toe. I lost range of motion and that kind of thing. And to get that back is months. It's such a small joint, but it took me, I think, 3 or 4 months to be fully back to where I was before.
Yeah, I need surgery, but I just can't be asked now. So the cortisone shots work for now.
Yeah,
it's horrible. Yeah, but it works.
So with your long-term injury, the 6 to 9 months when you broke the bone in your shin, talk to me about that time. That must have been scary when your job is to be a skater and the one thing you can't do is skate.
Yeah, that was a huge setback. I never thought of skating as a job really anyway. Just kind of doing it. I probably should have planned ahead a bit more. I've never been good at planning, as my fiance will tell you. I just kind of went with it. 4 months of crutches, and then 3 or 4 months of physiotherapy. A lot of swimming.
4 months of crutches.
Yeah, a long time.
I've never heard anyone be on crutches for that long. That's insane.
It was like November to February too. It was like the most peak possible time to do it. Cold, depressing. Oh, it was horrible.
That's you can't when you're. It's not like a normal job where you can take sick leave and that kind of thing. Like, obviously you say you didn't think of it as a job, but it's where your income is. So
yeah, I mean, once you're out. Like, you're just going to fall behind. It's the same in that happens to you in football. You see football players, who've got a lot of potential, get an injury. Next thing you know, they're playing the championship. because you got to get in the Premier League is so hard. If you get an injury, you're screwed.
Yeah.
It's the same in skiing. If you want to be at the top, you have to kind of get lucky in a way, or just have more talent than everyone else.
It's absolutely, yeah. I feel like for a lot of people, especially coming back from such a big injury, it would put them off doing the things they were doing previously because there's that scare of could it happen again? Was that ever in your head?
Yeah, I mean that's the main reason I never, up until recently, skated rails. I was just scared. I never did a feeble grind ever since, and that was the trick I broke my leg on, just a feeble grind.
So how long was that between? Since. So how long ago was that?
I broke my leg.
Yeah.
12 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've never done feeble since.
Still, it affects you.
Yeah, I'll just never do it again.
Wow.
But the thing is, like, for the last year or two, I've completely changed what I'm trying to skate. I really try to skate rails now, and I'm getting much more. That's given me like a new lease of stoke towards skating, because transition's just in my muscle memory at this point. Like, I don't really need to practice it too much, not to sound like arrogant, but once you know you've done something so many times, you can just do it. Do you know what I mean? That's how like rail guys are so good at rails, because they just grow up skating it. It's all about confidence and muscle memory. So I've just been trying to force myself to skate rails, and it's getting like, I'm really starting to enjoy it now, because I'm learning all these different tricks, and it's like I feel like a kid again.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, it was such a good feeling when, like, landing your first kick flip, landing your first heel flip, the hours you'd spend doing it, and then that one time that you do land it was the best. It was the best feeling in the world. It can't compare to a lot. Yeah. There's not a lot that does.
I'm getting that same feeling back with learning rail tricks. Like, don't really get that with transition anymore, because you just done it for so long. But with rails, I'm like, every time I learn a new rail trick, I'm so fucking stoked.
Yeah, it's definitely a sport that allows for that feeling of being a kid constantly. But yeah, so you said you moved to America 10 years ago. What sprouted that?
That was just Flip telling me to come out. They got me a visa. I actually ended up getting a 5-year visa, which is quite rare. And yeah, I just moved out, and then the rest is history, really.
How did you find the difference between the UK and the US skate scene?
That's massive. Back then it was a massive difference. I think UK scene's got a lot better recently. I think there's way more kids skating nowadays. Obviously, it's a lot more accessible to see. You've got everything you could ever need to see in the palm of your hand. Big difference growing up. But then again, you get a lot more distracted these days. It's probably hard to focus. Back then, we didn't have that much to distract us, which was quite cool. Be down the skate park and there's no phones or anything to distract you. So you're just skating the whole time.
Yeah, it's definitely a distraction now, because I remember it was the year Pokemon Go came out, and we planned to go on a trip to Liverpool skating. So we got the train to Liverpool, and then we all ended up downloading Pokemon Go, and the day was skating round.
Oh, is that the one where is that the one where you had to find them in the city or something?
Yeah, it was like the peak time that had come out, and we just spent, I think it was 8 hours on that game.
That was a weird time.
Oh, it was. Looking back, it was so good though. Like, that was like the start of obviously what technology has now become in terms of AI and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I liked it when things were less accessible and a bit more mysterious. I think that's why it used to be so, when you see a pro skate, you'd be like, whoa. Now you can just see what he gets up to every day, all day. You can go to the skate park and probably see like 10 pros here daily. It's just mad. It's so different.
So when you moved to the States and you were obviously, you'd moved out there to be with Flip, was it ever, so obviously we talked about like Corin Capel skated the X Games, Lana Oliveira skated Street League. Was it ever on your mind to compete in competitions like that, or were you always just there for, the street parts, that kind of thing, the magazines, all that?
No, I really wanted to do contests, and I actually I skated a qualifier for Street League in Barcelona, and I just I, for some reason, just cannot skate contact. I just fucking fall apart every time. I just start to get jitters and I start to question myself. And I still to this day can't do it. But that's why I'm skating so much more rails now because I'm hoping if I get so comfortable on them that it becomes muscle memory, I won't be like freaking out. Because, you know, most of the time, those courses have a lot of rails. And I would just have to try and navigate the course without skating the rails while all the other guys are jumping down, you know, the handrails and stuff. I'd have to go. And, you know, quarter pipe stuff doesn't get scored as well either. So I'm trying to adapt. But yes, contest was quite traumatic for me. Barcelona big after that. I remember flying home back to Bar. Oh my God, I snapped my board on live TV because I was so pissed off. And Jeremy called me. He's like, that was not a good look. I remember I lobbed it over the fucking barrier and just snapped the shit out of it on live TV or wherever it was being played.
It's so common. It's so common. Like you see in street parts, you know, all YouTube videos, that kind of thing now, where people they have a moment and they'll snap a board, launch it wherever. It's so raw. It's just the anger that you feel in that moment because you know you're capable of doing what you're doing. You don't understand why you can't do it.
Yeah, it's just frustrating. But again, back to contest, I think that's something that if you do it when you're a kid and you do it consistently, it's ingrained in your brain and it becomes muscle memory and it's so hard to learn to skate contest when you're an adult. Because I think when you're a kid, you don't really think as much. And you know, when you're older, especially me, I'm always thinking the worst. Like, oh, what if I fall? Instead of thinking, oh, I'm gonna land this, I think, oh, what if I fall? Why? I need therapy.
I get what you mean by skating it as a kid because you see it like we saw with the Olympics last summer, the amount of kids, especially in the women's category of skateboarding, the amount of kids like 11, 12.
Yeah.
It's
yeah, parents are onto it now. They know. But back then, again, I go back to my parents. I'm a little annoyed, but at the same time, I'm not because I wouldn't have wanted them around because they would just be annoying. But there's no way these kids like having their parents watching over them the whole time, pushing them to do shit. That's not what it's about.
For me, it's
most of these new kids are just unbelievably good. But the facilities and the training and the technology, recovery, everything's different now.
It's especially with it being broadcast on the Olympics. Like before that, I feel like now there's obviously a massive reach with it being in the Olympics. How do you?
It was a bit of a joke back then, but now it's like, well, shit, you can actually make really good money out of this, or you know, you can be, you can compete for your country.
Do you think it's done good or bad for the world of skating in terms of the publicity?
Just both. Same with anything.
Good
and bad.
What are the pros and the cons of it?
Pros, just more recognition, more brands involved, more money. I don't know why. There's no reason why skateboarding shouldn't be looked at the same way as all major sports are, because, in my opinion, it's just as hard. The amount of effort and time and pain and injuries that goes into learning how to skate on that level and the risks that some of these guys are taking, people you can't even comprehend. Jumping down a 15-stair rail is so dangerous. And then you've got like volleyball. It's just like whack.
Yeah.
But your average person probably thinks, I'm not having a pop at volleyball. It's probably quite a good laugh. I'm just using that as like, that's been in the Olympics. Skateboarding has just got in there, and people are probably just starting to realize how impressive it actually is.
It always baffled me that snowboarding and skiing and the freestyle side of it was always in the Olympics. It's always been a thing.
Yeah.
But skateboarding was never. Yet especially snowboarding, they're so interchangeable.
Yeah.
Like for me,
it's just different though, isn't it? It's Winter Olympics. There isn't that much you can do.
Yeah, that's true. But I still think if you're gonna if they were doing, snowboarding, the racing, and that was it, then I could understand it. But it was the fact there was the half pipe, there was the big airs, that kind of thing. when you're using that in the Winter Olympics, why aren't you then using skateboarding in the Summer Olympics? It never really made sense to me.
Yeah, but now they are. And it's
Then,
pretty funny to watch.
yeah, it is. So then obviously you were at Flip for just over 10 years.
Yeah, it was about 10 years.
And that came to an end. It was 2021, if I'm correct.
Yes. Yeah. So basically, they never turned me pro, which was their goal. You know, a lot of people wanted it to happen. I'm saying there see a lot of comments, but that's on them. They didn't think. You know, to be fair, I did get a bit lost in my 20s. From mid 20s, I was pretty out in the party scene. You know, got a bit lost, quite heavily into drugs. Was doing way too much of that stuff, and I wasn't skating that much. And I think I missed my. I definitely missed my window. That the injury combined with drinking and going out too much, definitely hindered me in that aspect. Which is something you just have to accept. And it only took me to like about 29 when I met my fiance. That was when I was really starting to like knuckle down and crack on and take it seriously, because I was just such a pile in my 20s. I was on a mad one, but what are you gonna do? Live in Hollywood.
Yeah, I feel like, especially for a Brit, like here in Britain, it's so small town. I've said it with a few people on this, is you grow up and everyone knows everyone's business. It's very small. And then to move, like I've moved to Australia and it's so different. And then you've moved to LA where it's probably even more different than it is here. How did that affect it?
Interesting. It's once you're going out, you're in the kind of party scene. It's quite small. Everyone knows each other, and you see the same people over and over again. It wasn't until I stepped out of it that I realized how stupid it really is.
It's definitely part, like for me, I sort of, it was start of uni. I did like obviously the freshers and that kind of thing, and it was just, I got to the end of freshers, I was like, I can't do it. It's not for me.
It lasted a good couple of years for me. I was on a mad one, regrettably, but what are you gonna do?
So then you left Flip because obviously you weren't made pro, and then what? Go on. If you want to talk about that anymore, then feel free to.
Basically, well, it was my fiance who kind of pushed me to do it, because she kind of I had never been in a serious relationship before until now, and she kind of saw my situation, and at the time I started skating with my friend Ryan, who films for SOVRN, and it just kind of happened naturally that I really liked SOVRN's like image and brand, and their board graphics are really good, and it's a bit more of like a small independent company, and she was like you should skate for them. I'm like, maybe I should. So it kind of just happened, and then I quit Flip. I went down there and just said I'm quitting, and it was a bit awkward, but whatever. And she came down with me, which was nice. And and then I didn't even know that SOVRN were going to turn me pro, to be honest. And then a couple months later, there was the board. But I was skating a lot with those guys, and it just kind of happened naturally. And I filmed most of that video part during like pandemic.
I was going to say, so you wouldn't have known then that they were going to turn you pro when you were filming that part?
No, but I wasn't filming a part for SOVRN at the time. I was just filming. I was still skating flipboards actually at that time. Most of that video part is flipboards, I think.
I noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, so I quit quite towards the end of that, and because I basically had a part ready to go. I don't know, it was all right.
To be fair, I thought it was good because it was very different to what you've put out previously. A lot of your previous stuff is very transition based, whereas this you took more to the street, and it was it was like you pushed yourself out of your comfort zone, and it was actually a really good video in my opinion.
No, definitely some of the tricks in there I was really proud of. I tried to push myself as much as I could. I think and then next thing I know, they called me and they're like, we're gonna turn you pro. That was mad.
I bet it was one of the most insane feelings you've had in skating, being
Yeah.
finally after years just going pro.
Yeah, it was, especially for me, it took a long time. And it was all good, I'd love to turn pro for Flip, but it wasn't meant to be. That was their decision, and I got no hard feelings towards them. We still,
So
I still follow them on Instagram and all that.
I think it's always better though when, especially, it's more career paths for both don't align, and you've taken a good way about going about it. You just told them, I don't want to skate for you anymore.
I just wasn't skating with that many guys on the team at the time, and quite a few of who I was close with had left. Curran and Louis quit as well, so I wasn't really like that close with anyone. I mean, Lawan for sure, but he lives in Brazil, so that's tricky. And then a couple of other guys I'd skate with as often as I could, but I just started to feel a bit removed from the whole thing. SOVRN was like kind of welcomed me in, and everyone made me feel really welcome. So, and their board graphics are awesome too. That was something that definitely drew me to it. Alex, the guy who makes the boards, was fantastic.
Yeah, they are definitely some good graphics. Like they're the kind of boards that you would have up on your wall in your living room, kind of thing.
And then like we did my fiance. She's like, "Oh, let's go get some sushi," and then what? It's like this really random place. I'm like, all right. And then I walked upstairs, and there was a couple of all the SOVRN guys were out there. One of my agents from IMG. And there wasn't a massive amount of people, but it was nice because it was intimate. So that was really sweet.
It's always better when it's
a bunch of wine for everyone. She bought like a bunch of wine for everyone. That was
unreal.
So nice of her. Yeah.
So you obviously, that was 2021, but before that as well, you have been modeling for how many years?
God, the first thing I think about 25, 26, I got signed to Next Models. By who's still my agent, Mimi. She was at Next and then we were there for about 3 years. Then she left. She opened the IMG office in Los Angeles, and I ended up going to IMG because I just followed her. And IMG is just mega company.
Yeah, it's because at the start it's interesting because you said that you wouldn't consider yourself a professional model, but you have worked with companies like DKNY recently, Hublet Watches.
DKNY was actually the first campaign I ever did. It's funny because that was the first job I ever got. That was crazy. So that was I didn't.
That's insane because it's no one really. You start small, where if you've started big essentially.
Yeah, I went straight in there, and it was mad because the shoot was huge. It was in New York, Lower East Side skate park, and the campaign was everywhere. It was on bus stops and all kinds of shit. And I was like, whoa, that was my first introduction to into that world, and I was like, this is all right. But at the time, it was a lot different to how it is now. There was only a couple of people were doing fashion stuff in skating, and we were getting pretty ridiculed for it as well. I used to be scared to post on Instagram about the job that I did, even though it was really cool shit. I was doing H&M campaign, shot on like a Wes Anderson movie set, DKNY campaign, Diesel, American Eagle, good stuff. But I was so scared to post about it because of the backlash.
What do you mean the backlash?
Well, just people talking shit. Oh, you're a dick. Wow, that's not. Whereas now everyone wants a bit of the action.
Yeah, I think it's a given with anything though. Like when you do something a bit out of the ordinary, people are always going to give you shit. But it always is the people who give you shit are the people who don't amount to doing much.
Yeah, it's just you can't pay any attention to it. I never did, but it was just funny to see the contrast from then to now.
Yes. So you've worked with obviously DKNY, Hublet Watches, Gucci. Talk to me about what it's like working with huge brands like that. In terms of obviously you've gone from skating, doing skate videos, to now you're working on these massive sets with these huge companies.
Yeah, I mean, some of the stuff you get to do is just outrageous. The hotels, shoots, the locations. I think I wouldn't. There's been some great ones. Gucci were really nice to work with, and then Dolce and Gabbana was really cool. H&M was probably the most like they probably treated me the best out of anyone. But then DKNY, Diesel. Well, I've done a few things with Burberry. God, Bulgari was really nice. They treated me really well. I went with my fiance to New York. That was right before. That was the last job I did before the pandemic. I think I was on the plane in February. I was actually really sick. I probably had COVID, to be honest. Didn't know what it was though. We were both fucked, and got to New York really sick, and then did the shoot, and then went back, and then next thing you know, everything shut down.
So I read an article on Thrasher's website about you going to, I think it was a party with Gucci, and you fell into the pool.
Mm.
Go on, do you want to explain?
Yeah, you were just at this mad. It was this party after the show, and it was at this big swimming pool that they just opened in like Milan or something. I think it was Milan. Yeah, it was Milan. It was this big outdoor public swimming pool, which they turned into like a club thing. And they put like plexiglass over the pool for most of it. And then we get there, and I swear I got spiked because I took a big shot. I think I was quite jet lagged too, because I literally flew from LA to Milan and back in 2 days. So I was just off. I was so out of it from jet lag anyway. But that combined with like a massive shot plus possible spiking, meant I went to walk. I went to stand on a piece of plexiglass, which actually turns out wasn't there. So I just put my foot straight into the pool, and I literally completely submerged in the pool. And I was wearing, a full Gucci suit, and it was just like, I just went home after that. It was horrible.
I bet
so traumatic.
I bet when you came out of the water, there's just everyone around you just staring.
Yeah, basically, it was pretty bad. And then haven't worked with them since, which is probably not a coincidence.
That's quite funny there.
Yeah.
So, are there any other talk to me about the modeling world versus the skate world? What's it like? Because they feel like two really contrasting things.
Actually, not that much really. They're quite similar in some ways. There's a lot of grafting, a lot of starting from the bottom. Modeling's actually quite cutthroat and horrible. Some of it, if you're really trying to do like shows and stuff like that, you'll have to sleep in a house. I never did any of that stuff. I wasn't tall enough. But I've seen model houses. They're pretty grimy. There'll be 7-8 guys in a house. Each having a single bed. It's absolute shithole. And you're not getting paid much either. So it's not too dissimilar to skating, because skaters don't get paid enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely an industry where there could probably be a lot more done at the lower end rather than paying everyone at the top. So
yeah, could be distributed a bit differently, perhaps, but it's the same in anything.
How's it changed for you? Because obviously you started skating when it was all VHS, but now everything's on Instagram. So how do you use your social media to market yourself? Like, do you make more money because of social media?
Yeah, well, I can't talk anything about, Instagram's been very kind to me. Because a lot of jobs now are based around Instagram. You do a shoot, the company sends you some product, you shoot it, and they basically they'll get a free campaign for quite a small fee sometimes, where they'll just have you shoot the stuff yourself. Like I just did something with DKNY. They just send me the codes, and then I go out with a friend, take the pictures, post it, and then boom, Instagram. But it's quite hard to keep up with Instagram because there's so much content now. Like if you to keep your followers engaged is hard, man, because if you keep on a certain level, some people don't know how much time and effort goes into those tricks. And then to just whack.
everyone just wants to see the end product,
Yeah.
you know, the thing that takes 3 hours. They want to see the 10 seconds.
Yeah, and then they'll immediately move on to the next person who just posted a trick, which is probably better than the one you just posted. So it's hard. It's hard to keep going, but it's good fun when you post a trick and everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that was good." You get a lot of comments. It's nice. It's two sides to it.
Yeah. Would you ever? So YouTube has become a massive thing, especially for some skaters. Like you look at the likes of, you know, John Hill. I swear Nigel Houston has it. John Hill. He's a professional skateboarder for a company called Revive, but he made a lot of videos to do with, you know, skating in New York, different, you know, going to different places. He talks about the state of different skate parks, that kind of thing. It's very, his content's very unique in that sense.
He's like vlogging or something.
Sort of, yeah. So he started out vlogging, but now it's more, there'll be a topic for a video, and within it, he'll put his skating. And he's, you know, he's professional for Revive Skateboards, which is a company out of Cincinnati. He has, I think, 1 million subscribers on his YouTube, so that's obviously his main source of income. Is that ever anything you would consider doing, or is that just not for you?
Yeah, definitely. I tried to start one actually not too long ago with a friend of mine, but he got so busy that he didn't have time for me, and I couldn't afford to give him enough what he deserved to make the videos that he was making. But we made a couple which were really cool, and so I started a page. The page is there. It just hasn't it's got like one video on it, but it did all right. It got like 5,000 or 6,000 views in like the first video I posted. Like, oh, there's probably something there, to be honest. I think I just texted my friend the other day actually about doing it again and try to maybe, because a lot of the videos that have done well for me in the past have always been like a day in the life, something along those lines. I think people respond quite well to them.
Yeah,
because they like to see your daily what you get up to basically, and then inside your house. Now that I'm in a different phase of my life and I've, you know, engaged, and we live in like an actual house instead of like a skate house, I feel like it might be quite cool to show that side of it now that I'm a bit older and I'm, you know, doing different stuff.
Yeah, I feel like the skate world has definitely transitioned in terms of how they view YouTube, because I feel like it used to be very much outcast. If you had a YouTube channel as a skater, it was very outcast because it was almost a fight against, you know, the big companies like Thrasher, like that kind of thing.
They're using YouTube a lot. You know, they're making money off their ad revenue off there for sure. So I think you definitely can't talk shit about skaters using YouTube. You can talk shit about some of the fucking stuff on there though, because some of it is so fucking cheesy.
I'll agree.
Some of it needs to be called out for how fucking stupid it is, because they're just taking the piss. They're literally, because, you know, most of the people watching the videos won't even know about skating anyway, so they're smart. They know what they're doing, but from the skate aspect, it's so hard to take it seriously.
I think a lot of the problem now is a lot of people are very inauthentic in what they do. Like, they're just very clever. They know how to market themselves to make the money, and it's not
all over the place. It's not just skating.
Yeah, it's like you look at TikTok, you see how some people are, and you instantly, you don't even have to know the person, you know straight away that isn't you. You aren't like that on a daily basis.
I think I always respond well to people who are genuine and like haven't changed the way they do it. There's a bloke called Mark Goldbridge on YouTube who I absolutely love. He does the United Stand.
He's so good.
He's like real life Alan Partridge. He's such a legend. And he's so great because he never ever changes the way he is. He's pretty famous now as well. He's got like 1.5 million followers, and he's up there.
Did. I think this season I didn't really watch him before this year, and it was the video of him. So he obviously streams every United game, and there's a video of him in the 4-0 loss to Brentford, where he just loses his head. Like, I've not seen anything like it.
No, but he does that all the time. But I've watched him for years, and I've always watched his pre-match, you know, videos. And as soon as the game's over, I'll whack his video on and watch his match reaction. I absolutely love it. But he's someone who's very genuine, and you can completely relate to. Plus, he's like literally real life Alan Partridge, and no one's funnier than
Have
Alan.
you seen?
No one's funnier than Alan Partridge, in my opinion.
I can agree. Have you seen Ben Foster, the ex-Watford goalkeeper? So he does the football fill-in, and he has Mark Goldbridge on. And
Foster's all right. His banter's a bit weak.
I'll agree with that, but I just think when he has Mark Goldbridge, and I feel like he's now become sort of a co-host in that football fill-in that he does, and he's so British in every aspect, like that. There's no positivity in anything, and he's just constantly that was shit. Like,
yeah, that's why I like him.
It's a bit of home from home for you.
Yeah, but no, I mean YouTube is it's definitely something it's just hard because you need somebody to film it for you who is just all in. Like I feel like a lot of time it's like the guy filming whoever's YouTube channel is like their brother or something, who are just in it. You know what I mean? Who that's if they make it, then they both make it. It can't just be you making it. It has to be the filmer making it too.
Yeah, it's
just so much time to do it. To make good money, you got to put so much fucking time into doing that.
100%. It's changed from like when I was younger. People just used to start with nothing, whereas now people look for quality. They're instantly you have to have quality or people switch off.
Yeah, and I hate the people that they try to clickbait you and just write some bollocks, headline or something like that. It's just there's a lot of shit out there which you have to avoid. But I don't really watch skating on YouTube, to be honest. It's either cars or football. That's it.
Yeah,
a lot of car stuff. I'm massively into cars.
Are you? What cars do you have? What car?
I've got a GLC 63 AMG. Big AMG fan.
See, it's something I could never fully get into.
My fiance is she's a badass. She's got Aston Martin Vantage. So
nice.
We're big into cars. That was one of the reasons we clicked in the first place. We were into cars, amongst other reasons. Obviously, it wasn't just that.
So where did you two meet?
God. So we actually met online on an app, which I think is pretty huge these days. I don't even know if people meet each other in real life anymore, do they?
Not very common.
I reckon it's weirder to meet someone in real life now than it is on an app.
I feel like it is.
That'd be mad if you met someone in real life. That'd be like, well, fucking hell. Yeah. So we met on an app, got chatting. Did she FaceTime me? I think I FaceTimed her to make sure she was actually her, because there's a lot of sketchy shit going on out there. So I FaceTimed her, and it was her. So I was like, all right, cool. And we met up, had some Korean food. First time I ever ate Korean, because she's full Korean. Had Korean food for the first time, which isn't the most flattering thing to eat, by the way. Go on a first date, it's not a good look. Like, it's really bright, it stinks. You're chomping down a bunch of meat, but it's a good laugh. And there's a beer. You have some beer and some meat, and it's quite a good ice. It's quite a good way to meet someone, actually. And then we didn't. We were just kind of cash. Is there a noise in the background there?
Yeah, I don't know what that was, but
we were just going along, and then unfortunately her dad went to hospital with a heart condition because he had a heart transplant like 16 years ago. So he got submitted to intensive care because his heart wasn't doing well. And at the time, I was living in Beverly Hills, which was about 3 or 4 minutes away from the hospital. So she lived like 25 minutes away, so she would end up spending like almost every night either at the hospital or at my house, because it was so close to the hospital. If something happened, which it usually would, she could just be there in a matter of minutes instead of like 30-minute drive, because sometimes she'd have to leave at like 4 or 5 in the morning.
Wow.
But that period of time, massively brought us closer together, and I would, take her bagels in the morning. I actually met her mum for the first time at the hospital, which was quite weird.
But she met her mum?
I met her mum, because her mum was in intensive care with her husband, who was not doing well.
No, I thought you said she met her mum for the first time. I was like, what?
No. they would spend the nights there. She would stay the night at my house most of the time, not my house, but where I was staying. And then that just brought us, close together. It kind of accelerated the relationship quicker than you could ever imagine, something like that. And then, unfortunately, one morning, I think it was about 7 in the morning, I get a call and he passed away. So I went to the hospital and waited in this reception, and yeah, she came down, and it was just it's horrible. But ever since then, we've been completely inseparable. I just spent like a week apart for the first time in like 3.5, 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So ever since then, we haven't left each other's side.
It's quite a nice story, actually, that one.
It's not nice, but it's nice at the same time. It's almost
it's one
because
of
if that didn't
like
happen, then we might not have gotten that close, and then who knows what might have happened. But that was a big part of it.
And then I think it was I've read in the Thrasher interview that you started your brand BA1 as a result of your fiance pushing you to do it.
Well, she has a manufacturing company here in LA, so we were able to do it through that, and yeah, it was good. It was good. It was a good learning experience. I want to go back to it soon. It was just kind of, it was intense because I just couldn't skate. I didn't have any time. And then I kind of, it just kind of took over everything, and I kind of, it's on ice. Let's put it that way. It's on ice.
Yeah.
It was a great learning experience.
I looked at the clothes and the things like that, and it's very uniquely you. Like, you don't wear the typical skater clothing, like the big graphic t-shirts, the very baggy, trousers, that kind of thing. The
graphic
big heavy
t-shirt. I'm wearing one now.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like, it's not like oversized, heavily oversized stuff. Yours is very much like.
Oh, that's people are madly into this big boy thing that's going on in skating. It's mad. They're all wearing these pants called big boys.
Never heard of them.
It's crazy. They're like fucking expensive too. They're like the biggest fucking pair of jeans you've ever seen. They're like They're like parachute pants, but made out of denim.
I know what you're on about.
But first of all, I'm like, they look really heavy, to be honest. And I'm like, how the fuck are you skating in those? But I've just always been into, especially being in the fashion world for a while. I was heavily influenced by Dylan, obviously. And I just always liked all black, skinny. I just thought I felt comfortable, and I'm not going to change for anyone. I'm fucking wearing all this. Because you see, some people, you're just like, you're completely following what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
Well, why would you do that? I get it. If you're trying to be popular and fit in, but if I don't feel comfortable wearing something, I just can't skate in it, to be honest.
Yeah. So you launched the brand, was it 2021?
Yeah,
right?
Something like that. But yeah. It was probably like 6 months before the pandemic. And then the pandemic fucking didn't help either.
Yeah, that absolutely ruined everyone, I think, in terms of any
aspirations
of things they wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely massively affected me, momentum-wise, especially in fashion. And, it's been hard to recover. It seems to be picking up a bit again recently, but for a long time there, it was hard because companies just weren't doing anything.
Yeah, it's definitely been tough for a lot of people, but I think now everyone's like, here it was always on a knife edge, and then it was only the other day that they said that, oh, you now don't have to isolate for COVID, which is wild. They were 2.5 years into
in Australia,
in Melbourne. Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, they were really strict there, weren't they?
9 months apparently the lockdown was for.
Fucking hell! That whole period of time was so ridiculous. I mean, that when the riots were going on too, that was mad. Because we live in a high rise in Koreatown, and I think it's because there's a marine recruiting office right beneath us in one of the retail spaces. And when that riots were going on, there was an actual tank parked outside our house. When you drive up the ramp to go into the parking area, there was a tank, like, guarding it, and then a guy with an AK-47 at the top of the ramp, making sure that you were a resident. I was like, oh, I could get used to this, but it was fucking
That's
mad.
wild.
It's just such a weird time.
It's weird to think that it'll never happen again in our lifetime. We will never go through anything like that.
If someone said to me now, you got to go into lockdown or you'll die, or risk getting COVID or getting some kind of serious disease, or go into lockdown, just go get the disease, just get it over with.
It was
Give it to me.
It was the fact that, like, so I remember the first couple of weeks of it, we weren't allowed out because in the UK you just weren't allowed out your house unless you're on your own.
Same here. It was mad.
And I went to the park, and literally me and my friend stood at opposite ends of the park, just leathering a football to each other. And police turned up and were like, "You've got to go home." Yeah. And we were like, "We're not even near each other. I don't get what the problem is." And they're like, "Yeah, you've got to go home."
I mean, it was pretty bad at the start what was happening to people, COVID wise. But if a COVID came along again, you just feel like, I'll just get it. I'd rather just get it.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking staying inside again.
Yeah.
The highlight of the day used to be, the highlight of our day would be like going to fucking Starbucks drive-through with our masks on, with gloves. Well, gloves and a mask to go to Starbucks.
It's funny now. You see people driving in the car by themselves with a mask on.
Oh, that really winds me up.
And I'm like, what are you protecting yourself from? You're in your own car.
That was stupid. That was stupid when COVID was about.
Yeah.
The fact that people are still doing it, that really winds me up.
I worked in a supermarket when COVID hit.
Oh God.
Oh my God. It was the heaviest. I've never experienced, like, Christmas was always bad. It's working in a supermarket. But then I've never experienced anything like it. The way people just used to raid the place as if they were just like, it was the end of the world. It was insane.
Yeah, with the toilet paper and stuff,
Oh, it was wild, but
ridiculous.
Sort of bringing this towards the end, what are your plans for the future? Obviously, you're now with SOVRN. You've got your own brand. You're doing your modelling, but what are your plans going forward?
Keep going with the skating. I want to really, now that I've practiced so much with the rails, I've got a lot of new tricks I'd like to try and take to, real obstacles streetwise and see what happens with that. Also, give the contests a good bash. I'd like to go to the UK Championships this time in April next year and try out for the British team. Just to be part of that would be cool. Hopefully I can get on well there. More pressing, more stuff, soon. We're supposed to, I think we're just going to go to Vegas and get married like next month or something.
No way.
Because we've always said like, let's get married, but it's hard because your family's in England, blah. So we're just like, just bollocks to it. We'll just go to Vegas. I think that's quite cool anyway.
Yeah, definitely is.
I'm not a big wedding person myself, and neither is she. So I think it kind of just works out. Just like go to Vegas, get married, have a good laugh, maybe go to a nice restaurant. And I think my mum will come out for it, and her mum will come along too. So I think we're going to do that, which would be nice. And then brand wise, that's still on ice. Looking into certain, future plans, business wise, what I want to do. Super into cars, so I'd like to do maybe something around cars one day, or something to do with cars. I also like the idea of having a car rental company for some reason. I'm a massive car nerd. Like, I don't know if many people know that, but I'm ridiculously into cars.
Yeah, car rental company is definitely a unique thing to want.
Top Gear was always my favorite show growing up. Absolutely obsessed with it. Those guys are my favorite. And ever since I can remember, I've just been into cars. And I'd like to do something around that.
Any chance of seeing you at the Olympics in 2024?
I'd love to, but I just don't think it's a realistic possibility. I'd have to make the team first, which that would be the first goal, and let's see from there. But it's so, the level's so high. Yeah, my friend Mickey, who's on the Canadian team, he is just like ridiculously consistent and amazing skater. He barely makes it into the top. He made it top 10. I'm like, holy shit! If he's only making, he got 9th place, I think, and that I'm like, all right, if he can only get 9th, what the fuck am I gonna get? But fair play to him. They're just on a whole nother level. The Japanese guys are just unbelievable.
That's something I've always been interested in, is the level of the Japanese kids.
It's fascinating. It's how quickly the level they've gone to so quickly. It's just amazing to watch. They've got this ability to spin into tricks like nothing I've ever seen before.
Are you familiar with Luis Mora, the filmer who's in LA, skater?
No.
So I can't remember for the life of me the kid's name, but he moved to Japan because of his wife, and he obviously met a lot of skaters out there. And there was a kid who was 13 or 14, never seen anything like it. He was like a prodigy.
Oh, I think he's the little Jin. I think his name's Jin Woo or something. He's like
he skates for Primitive, that I'm aware of.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about. Yeah, that kid's outrageous.
They're just,
Yuto's amazing. He's
Yeah.
obviously the best right now. Yeah, there's a couple of them. This other guy, Sora Shirai, he's unbelievably good. Yeah, it's just the consistency and skill they have is just something else.
Yeah. Just one final question for you before we wrap things up. How would you like to be remembered? I like to finish heavy.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Good banter. Good skater, liked football. Good husband. Not in any order. This doesn't have to be in any order. Just you don't have to write these on like stone or anything. Just
overall nice guy.
Yeah, good lad.
Yeah. Well, Ben Nordberg, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Good man.
Where would you like people to find you on Instagram, Twitter, that kind of thing?
Just Instagram. Don't do anything else. Can't be asked.
At Ben Nordberg.
Yeah, I barely managed to do that. So you can follow if you want. There's not much to look at. I'm trying to get better at it.
Cool. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching that episode of Quantum with Ben Nordberg. I hope you all enjoyed it. It was a very interesting conversation to have for me. So yeah, please leave a like, subscribe. I'll leave all of Ben's links below in the description. So give him a follow, find his board on the SOVRN website, buy it, support him how you can. And yeah, thank you for listening to this episode, and I'll see you again next week.